Hey, what's going on, guys? Back again, coming in hot with another big boy video. Today we're going to be looking at Wowanalyzer. Now, we did not long ago make a Warcraft logs video, and the two are kind of a two-part series. So Wowanalyzer is a complement to Warcraft logs, and you need to have your Warcraft logs in order to get the best out of Wowanalyzer. As you can see here, we're going to be looking at kind of some of the breakdown of Wowanalyzer, how we can use that to improve our performance as a feral druid. Now, this does have a wider application to pretty much every single other DPS class or DPS spec, but we are going to be focusing primarily on feral because that is what I play. I'm not very good at anything else. It's pretty much feral druid is the only thing I can do, and if I don't have that, then I have nothing. So, um, so we're going to be looking at that. So we're going to get this up here. So this is Wowanalyzer. This is what the website looks like. Now, if we take our Warcraft log report and just throw that into the URL, this is the screen that we get presented with. So this is the fight that we were looking at in the previous video, which I will have a link down to in the comment section or in the video section. And so we're going to be looking at Grothy, the same fight using the same logs, my log and another person. Going to stay consistent. Going to be looking at the exact same fight that we did in the previous video, so we can have a consistent and accurate viewpoint of how Wowanalyzer can help with our Warcraft log interpretation. So that's kind of just what we get brought onto. I'm going to close that down. So these are the two logs that we looked at previously in previous video. Oh, we've only got one there. That should be the two of them there. There we go. I think that's them. That's them there. Yeah. Okay. So if we take the first one, so this is this screen here. This web page here is my log, and this is the other person um, that we looked at. Again, not trying to use their personal info. I don't really want to go into who they are because I don't want to kind of target anyone or seem like I'm targeting a specific player. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's necessary. I just kind of chose a log with a similar item level to me at the time to make it accurate. Um, and that's all really. The player got a good log, nothing to be ashamed of. Um, so it was just a good representation to kind of see how we can compare two logs. So this is my log here. This is what I get brought onto if I go into Wowanalyzer and I input the log. And this is the other player here. So when you first get greeted, after you've input your specific log, you come onto this suggestion section where it tells you kind of areas that you can improve on in the fight, what things you kind of just could have done better, and it will normally list a few for you. If you do get it's tough because when you get a pretty decent enough percentile, if you get to like the 90+% on passes, then you no longer really get suggestions, or you shouldn't really get suggestions because you're pretty much playing it how it needs to be played. But obviously, if we're going to try and min max a little bit and try and really get the best that we can out of the play style, then we've got to look at the minor details. So click this option here, and this will kind of give you a rundown of the minor um, improvements you can make. But again, I'm going to be throwing this word in, gospel. Do not take this for gospel because you got to kind of think a little bit about why it's telling you what you need to be doing. And that kind of brings me into the point of what is Wowanalyzer good for? Well, it's got my notes here. It's really good for looking at your start rotation and how you can improve that. What other uh, top players, are doing for their start rotation and where yours differs because realistically, if they're the top player in the world, they're probably going to be doing their rotation the best in the world. So you want to copy them. Again, copy, copy, copy. We're not figuring anything out but for ourselves here. We're just copying everyone else. Want only the top people. So really good for your start rotation, really good for looking at your uptimes on your abilities and how those all kind of sync up. looking at your optimal casts. So, did you use Ashamane's 3 times in a fight out of 3 possible opportunities, or did you only use it twice or once? Why why weren't you using it every single chance that you could? And then we can also look at where people are using their cooldowns. So are they saving them for a specific section of the fight? You know, is this something mechanically where you can improve on because you've burst your cooldowns as soon as they come up again, whereas a more aware player has held on to their cooldowns for maybe 10, 15, maybe even 30 seconds to wait to line up with Bloodlust or to line up with a specific boss mechanic, such for example Kingaroth on Mythic, where you want to save your cooldowns for the ad phases because they increase the DPS that you do to them. So you want to be using as many cooldowns as you can for the ads because you're going to be doing more overall damage. So it just makes sense, obviously. So it's about reading the fight mechanics, the rotational mechanics, and uh, and that's it. That's I think those are the only 2 things. Simple game, simple game, nothing to it. And the reason that Wowanalyzer, I guess a criticism of it, not necessarily a bad thing, is that there is such a huge amount of information. It can be very difficult to look at it and go, okay, well, how do I compute all this? How do I kind of take all this information and figure out what's useful and what's not? And obviously, because it is just I guess like however the website is designed, it's just an algorithm to kind of take all the raw stats and it kind of compiles them into a nicely presented breakdown of everything that occurred in the fight, but it doesn't explain to you why or how, and that's where you have to take your own interpretation and your own awareness of what's going on to figure out, you kind of piece it all together like a bit of a puzzle. So sometimes a little bit too much information, but if you can work out how to use it, then it's a great, great tool. And again, you use it in conjunction with Warcraft logs. So together, the 2 websites really work well together. So, uh, so if we begin here and we look at the suggestions tab, now if we click over here and we just look at the main suggestions, now for me, it's not coming up with anything, and that's good and bad because it's saying I can't improve on anything, which is fine, but you can always improve somewhere. So it's kind of annoying that they don't give you any major suggestions, but that's fine. If you look at this other player, you can see that it's discussing their uptime, which if you look in the previous video, we did mention about the lower uptimes, the suboptimal uptimes that they had on some of their bleed abilities, which is a huge damage contribution. We looked at it was 40 million damage of a complete 80 million damage difference between me and them. So it's 50% of our damage, or 50% of the damage difference between me and this other player was based purely just on uptime difference. So if we look at this, it's saying, their Moonfire and their Rip Time can be improved, um, and it's even giving you a little breakdown of what their uptime was and where it should be, what's recommended. And like I said, around about the 95 plus range, um, close to as close to 100% uptime as possible. You'll never really get 100% dial. If you did, that's really impressive, great stuff. But you don't need 100% uptime to be a really, really top end player. So as you can see here, they can improve upon their uptimes, as we mentioned. So that's good that it's staying consistent, and that we were correct in our analysis of that. If we then look on the minor importance tab, we can see the downtime being an issue for both of us. And for me specifically, not this player, I mean, it may be, again, with the website, it only displays a select few. I don't think it gives you every single improvement that you can make. It just picks the key ones. So it may be, this ferocious bite issue may be the same for the other player, but it's just not displayed. But regardless, looking at mine, we can see that my downtime was quite high compared to where it should be. Now the website, the algorithm is saying that we should have a 20% downtime, like maximum really is recommended. But and that's the downtime is just where we're not pressing any abilities. Maybe we're not attacking the boss. Maybe there's a certain mechanic that we're not able to, or whatever. You just maybe just chilling out, sending a text message, whatever you got to do mid fight. So if we look at the downtime for Grothy specifically, and this is where you need to kind of use a little bit of your own intuition here and your own interpretation. On Grothy, if you think about it, you cannot attack the boss 100% of the time unless you've got some really good defensives because of the effect. I can't remember what it's called, but basically you have to move away from the boss because he does that big ability where the closer you are to the boss, the more damage you take. So unless you kind of pop bear form, pop a survival instincts, you're not really going to survive it. Um, so you kind of have to move away from the boss on Mythic, which is going to increase the downtime. So that's kind of somewhat something that you have to kind of be aware of. So maybe I could have improved my downtime and had it lower, but it's kind of part of the fight. So it's not something to get too hung up on. Next, we'll look at the saving. So with Ferocious Bite, you want to use Ferocious Bite if you have 50 or more energy, because you have an increase of damage the more energy you have, up to 50 energy. Past that, I think it costs 35 energy to use Ferocious Bite, but for every point of energy more, you do increased damage up to 50 energy. So you want to save it till 50 energy. That's fine. Okay. And it's saying here I was using Ferocious Bite on average at around about 49 energy, which is pretty cool, I guess. I'll take that. That's fine with me. No big deal. But to think about why this may not be accurate, uh, we got to look at the tier 21 tier set, which I think it's the 4 set makes it so that you can get a proc on your Ferocious Bite, so it can be a free cast, and it will um, hit for as if you had 5 combo points. So you basically get a free max combo point Ferocious Bite, and obviously you want to be using that on proc. You don't want to be saving that. You just want to use it pretty much whenever you can, and you may not have 50 energy when it procs, so you may be using it, and the algorithm here is not accounting for the fact that you're going to get the free proc. So it's just seeing, oh, you only had 20 energy, use Ferocious Bite, that's bad. Um, so you gotta kind of take it with a pinch of salt, and I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I mean, I've not really, I've not emailed these guys. I don't know 100% that that's how it works, but I'm pretty sure, and it seems to make sense that that's how it works. So I'm confident in kind of saying that. Next, if we kind of scroll down a little bit, we can kind of move past the minor improvements and that kind of thing. We get a display here of our uptimes, and we can see our total damage done here. We can see, even like how many combo points you wasted. So you're at 5 combo points, and did you press another ability, another combo point generator, and it was wasted. Um, so, sometimes you'll do that if you got to re-rake, and it's more important to re-rake than to cast that extra global. Maybe the boss is going to phase. It depends on the fight. Depends on what's going on at the time. Obviously, this person here did a lot better than me. That's great. That's great. That's good stuff. You want that to be kind of as low as possible. You don't really want to be wasting combo points if you don't need to. So then we can even look here at all our uptime percentages, and it even includes Savage Raw. Now that's a big one because you may be thinking, well, on Warcraft logs, it's a little bit more difficult to find the information for Savage Raw and how much of a contributor it is to your overall damage, and you may want to be weighing that up compared to like Brutal Slash. If you're a player that wants to play Brutal Slash single target, that's fine. Go ahead. I've mentioned it in one of my previous videos, but it's not the optimal talent. It's not going to do the most damage single target. Savage Raw is better for single target damage, but maybe just as a player you don't feel confident with Savage Raw, you don't like the playstyle, that's fine. But if you wanted to compare the two and see really where the difference is, this is a great tool to be able to do that. You can see here that in total, Savage Raw contributed to almost 300k DPS for me, which is huge. That is lots and lots of damage. That's not 300k damage total, that's per second. So that's huge. And you can see the uptime there, 96%. So the player 95%. That's cool. I pretty much want it kind of as close to 100% as you can. This is probably quite not the best for either of us here. So it's definitely something that both of us could improve on, 100%, 100%. So then if we kind of keep on scrolling down, this is the meaty stuff. This is the juicy stuff. This is what you came to Wowanalyzer for. This is what you really want to be looking at. And this is where you can weigh up your start rotation, what was happening throughout the fight, and where your cooldowns come back up, namely incarnation. That's where you want to be measuring your start rotation, incarnation when it comes back up again. So if we start here, we can see we both have the same idea on our rotation. We start with the rake. Obviously, you stealth, you rake. Then you want to get Savage Roar up as quickly as possible so that your Asher mains and your shreds thereafter and your rip are all scaling off of Savage Roar. Now that's only a one maximum two combo point Savage Roar, depending on if I got lucky or not. So going to be a maximum of what, 18 seconds there. So I've got up to this point to re-Savage Roar, and as you can see, I Savage Roar there at 13 seconds, so I'm well within that timer, so we're good there. Even at 12 seconds, I must have got a one combo point and just hit it just as it was running out, but that's fine because there was no other ability between the last shred and that rake besides the Savage Roar, so we're good. Nothing was affected. I didn't use, if I'd used a shred like here at 13 seconds and then Savage Roared, that would have been bad because I wouldn't have gotten the scale off of Savage Roar. Anyway, let's go quite deep into that one. You can see, and some players will say, don't get Savage Roar up immediately. It's more important to get Asher mains, Incarnate, then Savage Roar before rather than Savage Roaring as soon as you can. So it's up for debate. This is what we're looking at. This is where we want to see what the optimal play is. So this is where you want to be looking at some of the better players. Like I said, I'm not the best player in the world. I'm okay. So I'm not someone to look at as like the standard, but I can definitely kind of have an input here on what you want to be looking for on how to improve, because we can all improve. So as you can see, we both try and get our rip up as soon as possible, and then it's just about shredding and ferocious buy-in, shredding and ferocious buy-in. And the reason that my damage for the initial phase, if we go on here, we can see the initial damage burst, I'm hitting at like 6 million, whereas this player's hitting at 3 million, is probably due a lot to the versatility difference. I've got 3,000 more versatility than they do. So each one of my abilities is going to be hitting a lot harder than their abilities, namely these shreds here that are really the core of our DPS. So I don't want to go too much into, oh, okay, well, I used 8 shreds and they only used 7, and I managed to squeeze an extra one in, and I'm unbelievable. How did he make this play? I'm a god, blah blah blah. Don't want to do all that. Uh, it, it's that's kind of, if you want to look at it, if you want to go into each second by second play on each ability and each uptime, that's fine. But I'm just not going to do that in this specific video because we're just looking at an overview. You can go away and look at one of your own logs and compare it with someone else, and and try and find where you can improve. But what I do want to do is bring us to the 3-minute mark here. Now is this is key here, and this is the key difference in the fight between me and this other player that we're viewing. If we look at 3 minutes here, between about 3 minutes and 3:30, let's look at that timer. So as you can see here, I peak at about 3.5 million between those 30 seconds, whereas this player hits well over 5 million, looking at about 5.5 million between 3 minutes and 3:30. And for the rest of the fight, they seem to pretty much hold slightly more damage than I do after that point. So they had a really good burst phase during this 3-minute timer. Now let's think why that is. For our cooldowns, obviously if we use Incarnate immediately in the fight, or pretty much immediately in the fight, within the first few seconds of starting, Incarnate should be back up at around about 3 minutes. So maybe 3 minutes 5 seconds, whatever, that's negligible. And so what you want to do as a feral druid is you obviously want to have Incarnate, Ashermane's Frenzy, Savage Roar, and Tiger's Fury all align so that everything's scaling off one another and you're having a huge damage increase to your abilities compared to if you just procced each of them separately, where it's multiplicative. So you're getting the 30% from Ashermane's increase, you're getting the 15% from Savage Roar. I think Tiger's Fury is getting 15% damage there, and then your Incarnate, obviously you're going to be hitting way more abilities. So that's where all your damage gets crammed in midway through the fight, or like, the last kind of 3/4 of the fight. Um, so if we look at this section here for 2 minutes 45, for me, this is me here, and I Tiger's Fury, Savage Roar, and then Ashamane's. So I don't have Ashamane's back up for Incarnate. I didn't save it for Incarnation, so I didn't have the multiplicative effect. Of course, yes, I still had. In fact, I don't have Tiger's Fury until about what, like 6, 7 seconds after I use Incarnate, which is a huge damage loss because I cannot squeeze as many shreds in uh, because I don't have the energy compared to this player who has used Tiger's Fury and Incarnation at the same time with their Ashamane's Frenzy. So they're having this huge multiplicative effect. They're having that huge damage increase to get them over that 5.5 million, that 6 million damage. Whereas I am only sitting cruising on by just biding my time at that 3 million mark, which is just completely trash, complete misplay on my part, and I can immediately see, right, okay, that person has a huge damage spike at 3 minutes. Why is that? It's because they've aligned those abilities and I have not. And that's a clear indicator of how this website can be used to not just go, let's look at it here. Oh, well, our shreds did the same amount of damage, so surely, like, can't be improved upon, right? Like, we did the same damage. Well, no, because if you actually look on Wowanalyzer at the individual breakdown, you can see where the damage was coming from at what part of the fight. So very, very key there to be looking at that. And it goes on, and the fight ends, and that's fine. And we both get pretty good solid percentiles. So only minor changes here. Both of us clearly know how to play the class. We're both performing well. To get our rotation, to keep our uptimes up pretty high on our bleeds. But you can see, even at the high end of gameplay, there are still just a few tweaks you can make that can dramatically increase your damage. So, who knows what my DPS would have been at the end of that fight. I got 100 percentile, but who knows how my world pass would have been, or whatever, um, just damage wise. So, very key there to take that into account. Next, we're going to go into the abilities tab of Wowanalyzer, and we're just going to quickly look at what this overview gives us. So you can clearly see here, it gives you each cast that you made on each ability, and gives you a complete breakdown of that. And I think it shows you how many combo points each ability generated per minute, which I guess that's some light bedtime reading if you really want to get stuck into that. I personally don't really care about that information. I just want to know here. I want to look at our cooldown usage because this is the key element of where our damage is coming from. Our cooldown phases, as you can see by the graphs, it's these spikes here where our cooldowns are up and we're able to align all of them together to get the big boy burst damage that we want. So if we look briefly here, you can see we both use 2 for 2 on our incarnation. Of course, we're both going to use it in the fight as soon as we can. That's obvious. Tiger's Fury, we're both only getting, we're both one off of our maximum cast, so 8 out of 9 and 8 out of 8. And you may be thinking, oh, well, clearly we just want to be using Tiger's Fury off cooldown. We want to get that 9 out of 9. We want to get that 100%. But that is not true. That's not quite how your cooldowns are going to work. And, this is where you need to be using your intuition again, and you need to be applying what you know about how Feral plays as a class to what the computer is giving you, what the algorithm is giving you in terms of the damage breakdown. Tiger's Fury, you want to be aligning with your Ashamane's Frenzy, or, well, and hopefully with your Incarnation, because you're going to have that multiplicative scaling of the damage increase as well as the huge energy boost. Because if you're at 0 energy and you proc Incarnation, you're not going to get as many globals off as if you had maximum energy. Because you still, although Incarnation is going to reduce the energy cost, you still, because you started so low on the energy, you're not going to quite be gaining your energy quick enough. So you want to hit Tiger's Fury with your Incarnation and with your Ashamane's Frenzy. So sometimes that can mean holding on to Tiger's Fury for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, maybe even 20 seconds. If it means you can align it with the rest of your cooldowns, it's imperative that you do that. So that's why here, even being an 8 of 9 cast, 7 out of 8 cast, that is totally fine. You probably played it, you know, the best that you could in terms of aligning your cooldowns there. So that's good. Again, Asherman's Frenzy, 3 out of 4 casts, 3 out of 4 casts. You could say the same thing. Why haven't you got 4 out of 4? And that is purely based on having to save your Asherman's Frenzy for when you've got your Tiger's Fury. So sometimes you might want to wait 6 seconds, like 10 seconds, for the two to align, or you want to wait and hold off on your Ashermains for maybe even 30 seconds to wait for your incarnation. This I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head. I can't actually remember exactly when. I think Asherman's Frenzy, I think, is on like a 1 minute, like 25-second cooldown or something roughly. So it pretty much almost, your incarnation is pretty much almost off cooldown on your third Asherman's Frenzy. I think that should be how it works, just thinking off the top of my head here. So you don't want to be at maximum casts. Or it's not that you don't want to be there. Obviously you want to be there, but it may not be possible based on how your cooldowns line up and with the fight. So you just got to kind of review that, take that into account. Now, defensive cooldowns, I mean, I guess you can use them. Who cares? That's the healer's job. So that's a good breakdown of the abilities tab. There, again, you can look at the combo point usage if you really want. Again, some light bedtime reading. You can, you know, I don't really know what you take from that. If you can kind of see a huge use for it, please let me know. Let me know how I can improve damage based on looking at that. You can see your combo points wasted, but like I said, I mean sometimes you'll be at 5 combo points and your rake will drop off, and it will be better to re-rake at 5 combo points and waste a combo point rather than to ferocious bite or to rip when you don't need to, um, instead of getting and maintaining that rake ticking dot. So, you know, sometimes it's worth losing a combo point. Yeah, you messed up. You shouldn't ever have to waste a combo point if you play it correctly, but sometimes you do, and that's where you just got to think on the fly. Next, you can look at the cooldowns tab, which is really, really cool. If you really, really want to get stuck in and delve a lot of time, you can see each of your cooldown phases, what abilities you pressed. So for Feral Druid, it will show you your Incarnation breakdown. So what abilities you pressed for the whole duration of Incarnation. Tiger's Fury, again, it shows you when you used it at the fight. So from 3 seconds to 33 seconds of the fight, that's when we both used it. And then you can kind of align and see, right, well, we both used our Ashermids at the same time. Again, at 1 minute 34, I used it slightly quicker than they did. They used it at 304 with their incarnate. Here I did not because I'd used it earlier. So so you can kind of, see the difference between you and another player, or even if you're not comparing this between you and another player, you can just kind of do some self comparison and kind of some internalization here and figure out, right, well, did I do this rotation in the optimal format, or could I have improved it here? Could I have, I don't know, like done, I don't know, a re-rake here instead of here? Would that have been better? That kind of thing. I will briefly mention, because it has just kind of um, crossed my mind, it has just caught my attention that on this log it does not show you Moonfire usage, and I don't know why that is, but it's not there. You can look at all the spells here, and Moonfire is not present. I don't know why that is, but it doesn't take that into account now. It's telling me I did 0 casts, which clearly is not true because it tells me right here that I used it, and it tells me right here that I used it. So I don't know if it's something to do with the website just not correctly kind of pulling through that information. Whatever that may be, you can see here, and you can manually work it out if you really want, but just take it on kind of the basis that if your uptime is close to 100%, then you're using Moonfire correctly. If it's not at 100%, you're not using it correctly. And that's that. Apart from that, that's pretty much it in terms of all I've got for Wowanalyzer. As you can see, really good tool for looking at your start rotation, your key ability uptimes, and your cooldown rotation midway through the fight or at the end of the fight. a really good comparative tool for each individual ability breakdown, something that Warcraft Logs does not offer, and it's presented in what I think is quite a nice format. Quite a nice, easily viewable experience, quite easy to interpret. Sometimes it does suffer from having a little bit too much information, like the whole combo point wasted thing. I think that's kind of minor, like minor for the minor, quite insignificant. Not only minor but insignificant. Um, so that is pretty much a summary of Wowanalyzer, um, and uh, and that's that. So collectively between this video and the previous video, we have managed to look at Warcraft logs, how to interpret them, what key information we're looking for, where that damage difference is coming from between you and another player, and we've looked at WoW Analyzer. I do just want to give you a top tip here. When you are Googling for WoW Analyzer, make sure that you fill in the full word, because if you kind of just start typing WoW and you kind of just let autofill do the rest for you, you might end up on some pretty iffy sites, pretty much pretty unrelated to World of Warcraft. Um, Still may be of interest to you though, so definitely check those out. So that's just a tip there. Now, as you can see, yeah, we've covered kind of both sections. Hopefully, that's been a good insight for you. Hopefully, it's been clear and you've had some clarity, and hopefully, you can go away and you can kind of pick and choose the information that you require to help improve your logs as a feral druid, or even if you're not a feral druid, even if you're just another DPS class that wants to look at kind of how to analyze all this information. Maybe you got a guildie who is a feral druid, you're not a feral druid yourself, and you want to learn how to improve their logs for them. Hopefully some of this information has helped. Um, Again, I'm going to have links to the previous video in the kind of below section, in the video details section. If you guys want to leave some comments, that would be great. Always helpful to know what you guys are thinking when you've watched the video. If you liked it, if you didn't, is there too much waffling? Is there not? Have I gone into enough detail? Have I not gone into enough detail? Where do you want me to kind of draw the line here? I can I can talk all day on feral, so just kind of let me know what you think. Again, you can like and subscribe. I'd be really grateful for that, but I don't want to kind of be, smash that button kind of thing. That's not what I'm about. If you like it, you will. If not, you won't, and that's fine with me. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to view this. I do apologize for them being such long videos, but that's kind of just me getting caught away with myself. So hopefully the videos coming in future will be a little bit shorter, a little bit more easily digestible. It's just gonna be a work in progress. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.